I'm sorry. I would get the phone call and I would get, I don't think they did email back then, but I would get a phone call and they would ask me if I would come. And I said, absolutely. And then they would tell me what they wanted me for.
Yeah. And was it that much sort of instructions where would you get even a few days notice, or sometimes was it maybe 2 days beforehand? Look, bam, are you ready? We have some sort of role, a drop of the hat. We need you right now. Can you come? Can you go? And were there times where you weren't situated in Miami or the nearby where you got where the phone call came and you were like, oh, I wish I could have done that, but I'm not around? Or was there always that? Was there ever a missed opportunity, dare I say?
There's always missed opportunities. Every once in a while, something comes up and you go, oh man, I can't do that one. Oh, I really feel bad. I'm sorry about that. But most of the time, I was in Miami. I was living in Miami. So if they would call up and they'd say, listen, on Thursday, we need somebody. Can you bring your motorcycle? Or on Thursday, can you bring, remember that vest you had last time? Wear that vest or something like that. That's usually how it went.
Yeah, and in terms of your look, was it all specific, or sometimes when they did these characters in mind, did always have ideas themselves how to change it up, or did they listen to your ideas in terms of the character, and we were able to give ideas to him? Maybe I can maybe wear a hat this way, or maybe trim this, or maybe sort of a scar or a bit of a tattoo here or there. In terms of how could you make it change to give different life to each of these characters?
Most of the time they did like my look, and that's why I kept getting called back. Back then, I was a good-looking guy. I had like really long, flowing hair. It was down to past my shoulders. I was very well built at the time. I had been lifting weights for a couple of years, and I was pretty jacked. Uh, and I belonged to a motorcycle club that was a clean club. In other words, everybody was free of drugs and alcohol and other drugs. Nobody used anything. We didn't use anything. And I think that's how we got called originally, because I believe originally they had called for some club to come and they needed some bikers, and those guys were drinking and loud and wouldn't pay attention and weren't listening, and they couldn't use them anymore. So they got a hold of us. I don't remember how exactly they got a hold of us, but they said, you guys don't drink? No. You guys don't use, you don't smoke pot or anything? We said, no. And they said, wow, would you be interested in this? And we said, yeah, sure, we would. So two of us started. The others were busy doing other things. And then it just was me after a while. I think twice two of us were involved. And then after that was just me. They just would call me up. And like I said, I guess it's because of my look. I had a Fu Manchu mustache. It was down to like here. And, my hair was all wavy. Every once in a while I'd say, hey, I think maybe I could put my hair up in like a ponytail. Would that be good? And most of the time they said, no, 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 leave it down. It looks great. It looks great. And so, okay, looks great.
And was there ever a sense where they asked you in terms of obviously you're playing these sort of background sort of day player sort of characters as well, but was there ever a sense where sometimes they asked you, Bam, would you mind doing a bit of a stunt here or a stunt there, or was that ever on the cards in terms of that?
Not with Miami Vice. I didn't do any stunts with Miami Vice at all. I didn't do stunts until years and years later. Um, I, in one of my more recent films, I was asked to be the person who got hit in the face with a crowbar, and I had to spit blood and fall down, and then they hit me while I was down, and I had to, bounce around a little bit, and that was all. They had to shoot that from different angles, and they had to set it up different ways because it was a stunt, and they didn't want to have to do it over and over again. So but that was much later. They never asked me to do stunts for Miami Vice. I was just okay the way they had me. I mean, there were times that I would have real close-ups with Don Johnson or Matt Frewer, but it wasn't any stunts involved. It was just like talking or arguments, or maybe he'd put his hand in my chest or something like that.
Yeah. And how was that like the sort of relationship coming in as a sort of a day player? And obviously you did established core, like you mentioned, like Don Johnson, Philip Michael Thomas, in terms of that, interacting with those sort of characters in terms of the sort of scenes and probably the respect mandatory that goes sort of both ways. Do you ever felt sometimes that coming into seeing that you just might know what you might response you might get from the actors, or was always a friendly, and after coming back two or three times was it almost a friendly sort of salute, or did you always feel that I was treated like a day player, dare I say?
No, actually, and it's funny you bring that up. Of all of the actors that I've been involved with over the years, I think Don Johnson was probably one of the nicest of all times.
Okay.
Uh, there was one incident where I think it might have been my first or second time there, and I wanted to get an autograph. I was like, "Oh my, it's Don Johnson! Oh my goodness!" And I stood there and I waited for an autograph, and him and a couple of his bodyguards were walking, or two of his bodyguards were walking by, and they were like pushing people a little bit out of the way so Don Johnson could go by. And when they got to me, like I said, I was like a solid wall. So he put his hand in my chest, and I didn't move. And he stopped and he looked back at Don Johnson, and Don Johnson just shrugged his shoulders and walked over to me and took my pad and wrote on it. And I think that's why the connection was made, because after that there was a couple of scenes, and there was a scene in a later movie where I played a pilot, one of his pilots that he was organizing. And he just stood right there, and we were like talking to each other, sort of. He was like doing this whole speech. He was supposed to be walking around, but when he stood in front of me, he like smiled and talked straight to me, and it was great. They had the camera right over my shoulder, and then over his shoulder looking at me. And I think it was because of, he was just a nice guy. He was one of the nicest I've ever met.
And obviously, there's a sense of maybe being a day player on Miami Vice, and always the big stars always get notoriety and fame, and maybe can't go anywhere without being noticed. But sometimes when you're on a hit TV show like that, when people talk about Miami Vice, and you can probably out with family or friends or people you don't, you can say, "Oh, I was on that show," and people are like, really? Were you on that show? Really? Who are you? Or sort of stuff like that. Is it great to maybe remind people and not have that sort of paparazzi at your sort of doorstep, but to be involved with a legendary sort of show that people get surprised when you can tell them your sort of stories now and again?
Yeah, yeah, yes, absolutely. It's a lot of fun being able to say, "Yeah, I was on that show. Yeah, 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 that was me. I did that." Or, "Oh, somebody will say, I was over at the store the other day and I saw Don Johnson walk by," and I go, "Oh yeah, I was in a couple of episodes with him." Really? Yeah, back in Miami Vice, and yeah, you get to tell stories, so that's fun. It's exciting. But I didn't have any paparazzi at all. I wasn't big enough. I wasn't famous enough. I hadn't been in enough things. I actually think Miami Vice was the first, maybe the second show that I was ever on. So it's like I was brand new to the to acting, to being a player, to being brought back as I guess they called it a glorified extra or something like that. I don't remember what they
A
called it.
recurring extra, I'd say.
Recurring extra. Yeah, they called. Yeah, so that was probably the first one. The other one was a movie where I just sat down and didn't do much. But that one was the first time that I got called back. I was standing in one episode. I was walking around in another episode. I had to be a bad guy in another episode. Oh, I did. Yeah, yeah. I did talk to a girl once in that in the episode. Oh, what was the name of it? Do you remember
So
the
the episodes I have them here: a bullet for Crocker, deliver us from evil, mirror image, hostile takeover, and redemption in blood.
don't remember which one it was. It was the episode where he was married to the singer, and now offhand I can't remember her name, but she was doing a concert. So I was playing the man at the door of the concert, preventing, checking tickets and letting people in and not letting people in.
Concert security, deliver us from evil.
Deliver us from evil. That was it. That was it. Yeah. So I was at the front door, and again, they just had me with my hair down, and because I was big, I was standing there, looking tough, and everyone was let in. And then this girl comes over, and the part was she was to say, "I don't have a ticket, but can you let me in?" And I'm saying, "No, I'm sorry, I can't let you in if you don't have a ticket." And she says, "I would do anything." And I went, "Well, I'm really sorry, but I can't let you in." And that was the whole part. But it was fun to be able to, like actually get the SAG, invitation after doing, like one silly line, like, "No, I'm sorry, I can't let you in." But I got to stand at the door, and it was an episode that a lot of people remember because the girl that he was married to gets killed in that episode,
Yeah.
so it was a big deal. I can't remember her name.
I think I would have to go off and check it. But in
Yeah.
terms of that, but we're doing this now. So, Bam. In terms of Miami Vice, any sort of funny story or funny memory from in between a take or a set or something a day where maybe you're planning to do something or do a studio and something didn't go to plan or something didn't go right or something that made you laugh or something that you saw on set while you were passing by between other actors or stuff like that that made you laugh or made you or a wow moment or seeing a stunt or something up close and say, whoa.
Well, it's a long time ago. We're talking a really long time ago, and I can't remember the story about Don Johnson's bodyguard going to push me was one of my favorite recollections because I got to meet him and talk to him after that, and he signed the autograph for me. And after that, he was a little bit friendlier on set. I don't think when Matt Frewer was on, Matt Frewer is a funny guy. And between takes, he was always making jokes and laughing, and you just couldn't never tell what was going to come. And so you had to laugh at him, and then they tell you, "Okay, get back in characters." Like, then you have to be like strict and stern again. But I enjoyed myself on those sets. I really did. I had a good time. It was a lot of fun. Everyone was really friendly. It was one of the best. I still have fond memories of it because it was one of the best uh, sets that I've ever been on. Even doing other things in the future and getting bigger roles and nicer parts and more close-ups. But that one was probably my favorite because of the way everyone treated everyone. They had their trailers and we didn't, because we weren't that special. They all had individual trailers. But when everyone was on set together, it was more like a family. Everyone was nice.
On that note, Bam Rubenstein, thanks for sharing your memories of your time on Miami Vice. Hectic 1988, no doubt engraved in your memory that you'll never forget, and dare I say, for a long time to come.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your memories of your role in Miami Vice. And all that's left to say is from me, Jim Conlan, to you this evening, stay safe, take care, and God bless, sir.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. You too. Bye
Thank
bye now.